going to show you how to take this pop can and turn it into this stove. What you're going to need for this is a pop can. You can make a stove out of one can, but I like to make mine out of the bottom of two cans, and that's how I'm going to show you how to make your stove today. You're going to need a pair of scissors, some masking tape, a utility knife, ample supply of replacement blades, a small vice grip with a nail, tack, or you could even use a push pin, and some aluminum tape. Now, let's get started. The most difficult thing in making a pop can stove is cutting out the hole on the bottom here. And to do that, I like to do it first, because if I cut it out and I don't like it, then I haven't processed the rest of the stove, so I can just throw it away and grab another can. But what you're going to do is you're going to grab a can, and about 3/8 of an inch down to 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch, you're going to take your knife and you're going to start to rotate it. I like to hold my blade firm and rotate my can. And as I rotate that, slowly I'm leaving a little scoring in the aluminum. And the first couple of rotations, I want to apply minimal pressure as I am making sure I have a nice straight line all the way around my can. Now, once I've established a nice scoring, then I'm going to add a little more pressure and a little more pressure. Once I go around about 5 or 6 times, and I have a nice deep channel, a nice scored channel around the edge, then I'm going to force my knife blade into that and actually pop it open. And then I'm going to take my knife blade and actually push against that, and that is, with my finger, I can pop that center right out of there. And that's how easy it is to cut. Now, this is the hardest thing to do. You want to be careful. By scoring and then cutting and then pushing and having that aluminum tear, it leaves you with a very clean edge. It's extremely sharp, so you're going to need a lot of these. I've been making stoves for years, and I still get caught from time to time on the sharp edge. So you shouldn't be making these stoves if you're a minor child. Even if you're an adult supervising or doing it yourself, you're going to need ample supply of bandages, because most likely you are going to get cut. But once you've established your hole for your top, then you're going to want to cut an edge around. Now, if you're making these at home, take some masking tape and put an edge around, a ring of masking tape around your bottom of your can. That's going to give you a guideline. You're going to use the edge of the tape as a guideline for your blade. And then you're going to take your blade here. Once again, you're going to hold your blade stationary down. You're going to move your can up to it and rotate the can around. And the same principle here is you want light scoring. Light scoring until you establish a nice channel, and then you keep going around and around. Don't try to rush this process. If you use a sharp blade and you're patient, you get a nice clean edge. And that's really what we want, is a nice clean edge. Now, once you've gone through around this about 4 or 5 times, the same process, you're going to force your knife blade in, and then this will just tear. As you push your finger along the edge of this can, it'll tear right off, and you've got a nice clean edge. Then you can just take your masking tape off, and you've got a bottom of this ready to go. Now, I make a lot of these, so I have made a jig to make a bottom and a top. This is my bottom jig. It's a block of wood that is 35 millimeters high, and I've got a little recess in here, as you can see, that the can fits in nicely. I lay this down on the ground, snug the can up to it, and just rotate the can. And it's the same principle here. You want to hold it firmly as you rotate the can. The block of wood keeps the blade in the right proper spot all the way around, and you only have to go around, like I said, 3 or 4 times, and you're ready to put your blade in through that crevice and then push and tear, and you've got a bottom and top. Now, my bottom block is 35 millimeters. My top block is 31 millimeters, and why I cut them different sizes I'll explain a little later when we assemble them. But now you've got a top and a bottom. And what you want to do next is you have to assemble these two cans together. In order to do that, you have to reduce the circumference of the bottom by crimping the can. And I just do this by putting it in between my 2 forefingers and pinching it together. And as you go around, half inch and pinch, move another half inch and pinch, move another half inch and pinch, you're starting to get a crimping effect on your can. And once you do that all the way around, it's going to look a little something like this. And that will allow the bottom to insert into the top of the can perfectly. Now, the next thing we have to do is construct our inner wall. Once you're finished with your can, it's going to look like this because you've taken the bottom off. Now we're going to cut off the side, and you're going to do this with your scissors. You're just going to run it up. When you get to the top, just take a 90-degree turn and just cut out a panel of aluminum out of this can. Out of one panel, you can make 3 pop can stoves. So save these and cut them down. You're going to want to cut the inner piece. You're going to want to cut it down to 45 millimeters wide and about 195 millimeters long. Then you're going to take this and close it together like this, and you're going to move it in and out and pinch it together until it fits perfectly in that bottom ring. You want this to fit perfectly in that bottom ring. So you're going to move this around. When you get it just the way you want it, it's going to fit right there in that bottom ring of the can. And once you do that, you're going to want to cut a small little notch in here and bend it up, like I did right there, and that's going to go on the bottom of the can. So now we've taken our inner wall, which is 43 millimeters by 195. We've measured it so it fits snugly in that ring, not only on the bottom but on the top as well. Check it on both sides. And then you're going to take your bottom that you've crimped, you're going to put your inner wall in, and you're going to put your top on over that, and you're going to compress that down until you feel it stop. Well, what that does is that leaves the top edge about 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. Now, if we'd cut these top and bottom the same side, our edges would match right along the edge here, and you couldn't seal it up good. You're going to take this aluminum tape here, and you're going to cut a fine strip of it, and you're just going to wrap it around the bottom of this can, 1, to cover that sharp edge, and 2, to seal your can airtight. Now, once you get it here, and you've cut out the hole, which we did earlier, we showed you how, then you're going to want to put in the holes around the edge of your can. You take your vice grip, and you put it on the shoulder of this little lip here on the can, and you just force it in. And then you space it out about 3/8 of an inch or so, and you just continue on around the can, putting your holes in until you've got one that looks like this. Now this stove is just about ready to go. All we have to do is put our tape in. We have our top and bottom in place. We put our tape in to give us a nice airtight seal. We put our holes in. We've got our inner wall with a little notch cut in it, which will allow our fuel to flow freely between the 2 chambers. Now what we do is we're going to take this stove and we're going to use alcohol. This is an alcohol stove. And this happens to be just something from the drugstore. This is isopropyl alcohol 70%, which means 30% of it's water. So when it burns out, there's still going to be some liquid in the bottom when the alcohol is all consumed. 91% isopropyl is available. You can also use denatured alcohol. The higher the alcohol content, the hotter the fire is going to burn. And I put about, a couple of tablespoons in there. A tablespoon will burn for about 4 to 5 minutes. Then we take our match. If I can get it started here. And we're going to light the inside of that alcohol. Ignite it. And it's going to burn for a minute or 2 before the stove is really kicked into gear. What happens is, by creating that inner wall and allowing the alcohol to flow into that inner wall, that inner chamber, as the fire in the middle of this starts to heat up the alcohol, it heats up this middle chamber and will vaporize your alcohol. And when in a gas form, it starts to leak out the holes at the top. And then the flame will jump to the outside, and you will have a nice little stove. Now, you can use these stoves for cooking, for heating. They're great for indoors. They don't because it's alcohol, it burns cleanly. You can, they're very hot. The higher alcohol percentage that you put in there, whether it's denatured or 91% or 70%, the higher the alcohol, the hotter it will burn. And with a small cup, Sierra cup, for camping, you can boil yourself a cup of water real quick, or sterilize some water that you pull out of a stream. This is one of the first stoves I ever made. I made this out of one can with a pocket knife, and it's rough. The holes are just my knife poked in. The tape was just a piece of blue masking tape I have. I've had this stove for 3 years, still works great. I just like the looks of these stoves here. They just almost look store-bought. And now the number of holes is important. The more holes you put in there, the faster your fuel will be consumed. If you go about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch like this one, you're going to end up with about 30 holes all the way around. I've made stoves with holes all the way down to 4 holes, and they burn a little differently. The one we've lit up here, let me see, this is a 6-hole stove, and the 6-hole and the 8-hole stove I think work the best. See, this is assembled. We've got our tape on the bottom to cover our edge. It's been compressed together. It's nice and tight. This stove works really good, the 8-hole stove. And if you're going to make any number of these, making yourself a jig and mounting a blade on it is probably the way to go. But you really want to be careful with these. If they get bumped, they can splash, and your fuel, the flame's going to go with it. So if you get bumped and it spills out, the flame's going to hop out of your stove and follow your fuel across the table. So you want to be careful with it. But I have set these stoves up in my house on the kitchen table with just a cutting board under it, and with some wooden skewers and some mini marshmallows and some Teddy Grahams. We've made s'mores right there at the kitchen table. It's a fun little stove to have, and it's great for your emergency kit. The nice thing about it is if your stove wears out, gets damaged, gets stepped on, which happens, just look around and you're going to find another can. Unfortunately, if you're out in the wilderness, you'll probably find cans all over the place. So why don't you claim those cans, make a stove out of it, and turn it from junk into something useful. Now, this stove is now up and running, and I am going to lift it up and let you see how the flame comes out the side and dances. Like I said, this is a 6-hole stove, and you can cook right over the top of that. And this is how you make a Pepsi or pop can stove. I wish you luck. Like I said, be careful. The secret, once again, score lightly on your first few passes, and then when you get your scoring where you want it, you can apply more pressure, and then don't cut all the way through. Get it scored, puncture it, and then tear it. Then you'll get a nice clean edge. Same with the top and the sides. And go down to the hardware store or grocery store, get yourself a couple of cans or bottles of alcohol, and you've got yourself an emergency stove. You can have one in your trunk, have one in your cupboard, have one in your 72-hour kit. But these are great stoves to cook on. Like I said, for about every ounce you put in there, you get 4 to 5 minutes worth of cook time. A couple of ounces in there, plenty of time to boil some water. So good luck on your stove making. Next time we're going to discuss this stove, which is a little bit bigger. This is made out of a number 10 can, a Dinty-Moore stew can, a coat hanger, a fan from a computer, and a battery out of remote. We'll teach you how to make this this stove, which is a stove that will cook for a family. It's great. We'll talk about the fuel next time on home storage survival. Thank you.